Hello, everybody. Here we are. We're going to get going with Genesis 16. But the first thing I want to say is I want to ask you to pardon me for my very stupid statement yesterday when the Lord was talking to Abraham and said, through your seed, the entire world will be blessed. And here I am going, yeah, they've given us great medicine and they're good actors. That was a prophecy of Jesus Christ. And I know that, and I knew that. I think I was just so focused on the promises that will be fulfilled in the millennial reign. That was my bent. And I'm still going to keep an eye open, but I won't be making stupid statements like that again. So please forgive me, because the way the whole world is blessed is through Jesus Christ, okay? So here we go with Genesis 16. Now, Sarai, Abram's wife, had borne him no children, but she had an Egyptian slave named Hagar. So she said to Abram, "The Lord has kept me from having children. Go sleep with my slave. Perhaps I can build a family through her." Abram agreed to what Sarai said. So after Abram had been living in Canaan 10 years, Sarai, his wife, took her Egyptian slave Hagar and gave her to her husband to be his wife. He slept with Hagar and she conceived. Now, I know that was painful for Sarah, okay? But what I want to point to is Abram's lack of faith. The Lord told him he was going to have a blood-related son. Well, now I'm wondering if maybe he knew that it would come from Sarah. I don't know, but this is Abram trying to do something in his own strength. And this is a very dumb idea, but God uses it, and you'll see how he's going to use it, okay? Here we go. He slept with Hagar and she conceived. When she knew she was pregnant, she began to despise her mistress, Sarai. And I could understand that happening. Then Sarai said to Abram, "You're responsible for the wrong I'm suffering. I put my slave in your arms, and now that she knows she's pregnant, she despises me. May the Lord judge between you and me." "Your slave is in your hands," Abram said. "Do with her whatever you think best." Then Sarai mistreated Hagar, so she fled from her. The angel of the Lord found Hagar near a spring in the desert. It was the spring that is beside the road to Shur, S-H-U-R. And he said, "Hagar, slave of Sarai, where have you come from and where are you going?" "I'm running away from my mistress Sarai," she answered. Then the angel of the Lord, now could that be Jesus? Who knows? Then the angel of the Lord told her, "Go back to your mistress and submit to her." Then the angel added, "I will increase your descendants so much that they will be too numerous to count." The angel of the Lord also said to her, quote, "You are now pregnant and you will give birth to a son. You shall name him Ishmael, for the Lord has heard of your misery. He will be a wild donkey of a man. His hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand against him. And he will live in hostility towards all his brothers." End quote. Now, some think that this may be the Muslims or Islam, okay? She gave this name to the Lord who spoke to her, quote, "You are the God who sees me," end quote. For she said, quote, "I've now seen the one, capital O, who sees me," end quote. So it must have been Jesus. But she doesn't know him as Jesus. She just knows that God has spoken to her. That is why the well was called Bir Lahai Roi. It is still there between Kadesh and Bered. So Hagar bore Abram a son, and Abram gave the name Ishmael to the son she had born. Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bore Ishmael. So Bir Lahai Roi means well of the living one who sees me. All right. Genesis 17. My internet popped out for a minute. We're having a lot of rain here, so who knows what's going on with all the technical stuff. 17. When Abram was 99 years old, so this is 14 years later, the Lord appeared to him and said, I am God Almighty. Walk before me faithfully and be blameless. Then I will make my covenant. Remember, a covenant is even more than a promise because it's a sort of legal bond between the Lord and his creation. And this is why we can remind the Lord of his covenant promises. Then I will make my covenant between me and you and will greatly increase your numbers. Abram fell face down, and God said to him, as for me, this is my covenant with you. You will be the father of many nations. No longer will you be called Abram. Your name will be Abraham. For I've made you a father of many nations. I will make you very fruitful. I will make nations of you, and kings will come from you. I will establish my covenant as an everlasting covenant between me and you and your descendants after you for the generations to come, to be your God and the God of your descendants after you. The whole land of Canaan, where you now reside as a foreigner, I will give as an everlasting possession to you and your descendants after you, and I will be their God. That might be part of the reason we're having a millennium, is so that he can fulfill this everlasting promise of everlasting possession to this entire scope of land that he's just given him. Then God said to Abraham, as for you, you must keep my covenant, you and your descendants after you for the generations to come. This is my covenant with you and your descendants after you, the covenant you're to keep. Every male among you shall be circumcised. You are to undergo circumcision, and it will be the sign of the covenant between you and me, between me and you. For the generations to come, every male among you who's 8 days old must be circumcised, including those born in your household or bought with money from a foreigner, those who are not your offspring. Whether born in your household or bought with your money, they must be circumcised. My covenant in your flesh is to be an everlasting covenant. Any uncircumcised male who has not been circumcised in the flesh will be cut off from his people. He's broken my covenant. Okay, now when it talks about slaves or servants that are bought, they could be from among the Jews, people who are indentured servants. They could be spoils of war. Slavery is just how this world has always run. I hate to say it, okay? But by working within the reality that God has created, it doesn't mean that God loves slavery, okay? It just means this is, like I say, the definition of God in Webster's dictionary is the ultimate reality. Now, we know the reality we deal with here, and it can be very harsh and very difficult. Okay, especially because the world's under a curse. I had mentioned animals having a hard time because of humans and because of the laws of nature. Well, remember, the world is under a curse now, so those laws of nature are very harsh. But reality for us and for everybody here, because the world is under a curse, is very hard. It's very difficult. But God works within it, okay? I don't see him breaking basic laws to get something done, okay? And the reality of their situation on earth is that they do have slaves for purchase, okay? So God is saying anybody that you buy or any indentured servant, like from the Jews, because we'll read more about that, you're going to have them circumcised, okay? And that is to represent the covenant between me and you, meaning Abraham and God. God also said to Abraham, as for Sarai, your wife, you're no longer to call her Sarai. Her name will be Sarah. I will bless her and will surely give you a son by her. I will bless her so that she'll be the mother of nations. Kings of peoples will come from her. Abraham fell face down. He laughed and said to himself, will a son be born to a man 100 years old? Will Sarah bear a child at the age of 90? And Abraham said to God, if only Ishmael might live under your blessing, because that's the only son he knows he has. And by the way, Abraham is the father in the Muslim world also, in Islam, okay? Because remember, Abraham is the father of many nations. Then God said, yes, but your wife Sarah will bear. Okay, so the question was, if only Ishmael might live under your blessing. Then God said, yes, but your wife Sarah will bear you a son, and you will call him Isaac. I will establish my covenant with him as an everlasting covenant for his descendants after him. And as for Ishmael, I've heard you. I'll surely bless him. I'll make him fruitful and will greatly increase his numbers. He will be the father of 12 rulers, and I will make him into a great nation. But my covenant I will establish with Isaac, whom Sarah will bear to you by this time next year. When he had finished speaking with Abraham, God went up from him. On that very day, Abraham took his son Ishmael and all those born in his household or bought with his money, every male in his household, and circumcised them as God told him. Abraham was 99 years old when he was circumcised, and his son Ishmael was 13. Abraham and his son Ishmael were both circumcised on that very day, and every male in Abraham's household, including those born in his household or bought from a foreigner, was circumcised with him. Genesis 18. The Lord appeared to Abraham near the great trees of Mamre, M-A-M-R-E, while he was sitting at the entrance to his tent in the heat of the day. Abraham looked up and saw 3 men standing nearby. When he saw them, he hurried from the entrance of his tent to meet them and bowed low to the ground. He said, if I found favor in your eyes, my Lord, do not pass your servant by. Let a little water be brought, and then you may all wash your feet and rest under this tree. Now they're in a dry, hot land, so sandals were the norm, and feet get dusty and dirty after much travel, right? Let me get you something to eat so you can be refreshed, and then go on your way now that you've come to your servant. Very well, they answered, do as you say. So Abraham hurried into the tent to Sarah. Quick, he said, get 3 seahs, S-E-A-H-S, seahs or shays, I don't know how it's pronounced, but it's a measure, of the finest flour, and knead it and bake some bread. Then he ran to the herd and selected a choice, tender calf and gave it to a servant who hurried to prepare it. He then brought some curds and milk and the calf that had been prepared and set these before them. While they ate, he stood near them under a tree. Where is your wife Sarah? They asked him. There in the tent, he said. Then one of them said, I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son. Now Sarah was listening at the entrance to the tent, which was behind him. Abraham and Sarah were already very old, and Sarah was past the age of childbearing. So Sarah laughed to herself as she thought, after I'm worn out and my Lord is old, will I now have this pleasure? You know, I got to tell you something here. I asked my teacher once a long time ago. We were talking about heart desires, and I told her what it was that I wanted of the Lord, from the Lord. And she said, you'll get it, but you'll get it when you don't want it anymore. That answer really made me mad. I thought, well, what's the point if I don't want it anymore? But see, I was missing the dynamic. It's when you let go of something and give it to God in order for him to give it back to you in his timing. That's when it's right. And I'm going to say this about the singing. 30 years ago, when I was in a band and I was singing and preaching the gospel for 5 years, and I'm telling you something private, I used to say to the Lord, I'm going to take millions from you, for you. Oh, excuse me, bad faux pas. I'm going to take millions for you, Father. That was my heart's desire, was to go out there and sing and take millions for the Lord and plunder the enemy's territory. Big dream, big request. Well, that was 30 years ago. What happened to that dream? Believe me, I've asked. What happened? You know, for the next 10, 15 years, it was still alive. And then by the time I got to be almost 50, I was starting to really fade. And now at 65, it's dead. And I remember talking to the Lord and saying, what happened to those big promises? What happened to those big dreams? You know, because I had had prophecies spoken over me about, you know, a ministry and people being provided for my ministry. And I was like, what? Well, here I am at 65 years old, and I'm very content. I'm very happy in my beautiful home. I could take it or leave it if I had to. You know, the big dream, the old dream, the dead dream, right? And all of a sudden it's rushing back to me. And I'm not telling you the details, but there's a huge opportunity in what I'm getting ready to do. And I just covet your prayers. And I'm like, really, Lord, at 65? Are you kidding? And I even vocalized that thought to the person who was making me an offer. And they said, that has nothing to do with it. That's not a problem. Now, you know what's going on in my life. I don't literally, I think I have 30 pennies in my wallet. The enemy's got his grubby paws all over my life right now, hanging on to stuff, holding stuff back. I can't get to the first step of this opportunity right now. But because I've already let go of the whole dream, it's really much easier now to say, I'm going to be right on time when it happens. So this is what Sarah's saying. She's saying, you're giving it to me now after I'm worn out and old? You're kidding, right? After I've totally given up on the idea of ever having a child, that dream is dead. Dead as a doornail. I'm too old. That's exactly what I said. I didn't say I was too old. I said, at 65? And their answer was greatly encouraging. So God can do anything. And what I love about the Lord is that he never, ever forgets a desire. And if you busy yourself with serving him, he will resurrect the desires in due time. And I will tell you, if I do get a chance, if something happens where I get the chance to plunder the enemy's kingdom, I won't have my hands on it. It will be the Lord plundering the enemy's kingdom and using me as the vessel. Okay, I'm not going to have this, you know, my whole, it's not going to be the same kind of investment. Yes, I want it, but not like I used to. There's no self in it anymore. You know, it's like, I just look at it like Sarah, I'm old. Really? Okay. So here's Sarah saying this. Then the Lord said to Abraham, so these three men, the Lord is in there. He's one of them. Why did Sarah laugh and say, will I really have a child now that I'm old? Same question I had. At 65? Is anything too hard for the Lord? I will return to you at the appointed time next year, and Sarah will have a son. Sarah was afraid, so she lied and said, I did not laugh. But he said, yes, you did laugh. How scary. Have the Lord confront you and say, hey, When the men got up to leave, they looked down towards Sodom, and Abraham walked along with them to see them on their way. Then the Lord said, shall I hide from Abraham what I'm about to do? Now, isn't this interesting? There's 3 of them there. So it must be the Holy Spirit, Jesus, and the Lord. Abraham will surely become a great and powerful nation, and all nations on earth will be blessed through him. Can you imagine this conversation amongst the Trinity, and Jesus is standing right there, and they all know what's going to happen from this moment, all the way through till the millennium and the New Jerusalem? Have you ever thought about what an amazingly beautiful story this is that the Lord has put forth for us? For I've chosen him so that he'll direct his children and his household after him to keep the way of the Lord by doing what is right and just, so that the Lord will bring about for Abraham what he has promised him. Then the Lord said, the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so great, and their sin so grievous, that I will go down and see if what they have done is as bad as the outcry that has reached me. If not, I will know. The men turned away and went towards Sodom, but Abraham remained standing before the Lord. So 2 of them went, and the Lord was there with Abraham. Then Abraham approached him and said, will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked? What if there are 50 righteous people in the city? Will you really sweep it away and not spare the place for the sake of the 50 righteous people in it? Far be it for you to do such a thing, to kill the righteous with the wicked, treating the righteous and the wicked alike. Far be it from you. Will not the judge of all the earth do right? I can't believe that Abraham is standing here talking to the Lord. It's powerful. The Lord said, if I find 50 righteous people in the city of Sodom, I'll spare the whole place for their sake. Then Abraham spoke up again. Now that I've been so bold as to speak to the Lord, though I'm nothing but dust and ashes, what if the number of the righteous is 5 less than 50? Will you destroy the whole city for lack of 5 people? If I find 45 there, he said, I will not destroy it. Once again, he spoke to him, what if only 40 are found there? He said, for the sake of 40, I will not do it. Then he said, may the Lord not be angry, but let me speak. What if only 30 can be found there? He answered, I will not do it if I find 30 there. Abraham said, now that I've been so bold as to speak to the Lord, what if only 20 can be found there? For the sake of the 20, I will not destroy it, he said. Then he said, may the Lord not be angry, but let me speak just once more. What if only 10 can be found there? He answered, for the sake of the 10, I will not destroy it. When the Lord had finished speaking with Abraham, he left, and Abraham returned home. People, there are no stupid questions. Talk to the Lord. You can ask him anything, okay? Never lost his patience here with Abraham, okay? Genesis 19. The 2 angels arrived at Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gateway of the city. When he saw them, he got up to meet them and bowed down with his face to the ground. My lords, he said, please turn aside to your servant's house. You can wash your feet and spend the night and then go on your way early in the morning. No, they answered, we'll spend our night in the square. Now see, this is what travelers did. They went to the town square and waited for somebody to invite them into their home, someone to show them hospitality. This was the way it was in that day. You always went to the square. But he insisted so strongly that they did go with him and entered his house. Probably because he knew the people of the city would hurt these men. He prepared a meal for them, baking bread without yeast, and they ate. Before they had gone to bed, all the men from every part of the city of Sodom, both young and old, surrounded the house. They called to Lot, where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us so we can have sex with them. Lot went outside to meet them and shut the door behind him. Picture that. and said, "No, my friends, don't do this wicked thing. Look, I have 2 daughters who've never slept with a man. Let me bring them out to you, and you can do what you like with them. But don't do anything to these men, for they've come under the protection of my roof." Now that's hardcore. He's got 2 virgin daughters that he's going to sacrifice to these men in order to save the angels. That's hard. But I suspect we would do the same thing if we were in that position. We're not going to let angels get raped and sodomized. I mean, we're going to try to rationalize. And he most likely knew that these men were homosexual and we're not going to ask for the daughters, okay? Excuse me. "Get out of our way," they replied. "This fellow came here as a foreigner and now he wants to play the judge." That's what they're saying to Lot. "We'll treat you worse than them." They kept bringing pressure on Lot and moved forward to break down the door. But the men inside reached out and pulled Lot back into the house and shut the door. Then they struck the men who were at the door of the house, young and old, with blindness so that they couldn't find the door. The 2 men said to Lot, "Do you have anyone else here, son-in-law, sons or daughters, or anyone else in the city who belongs to you? Get them out of here, because we're going to destroy this place." The outcry to the Lord against its people is so great that he has sent us to destroy it. So Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-law who were pledged to marry his daughters. He said, "Hurry and get out of this place because the Lord is about to destroy the city." But his sons-in-laws thought he was joking. Now, I just want to go back. The more I think about it, the more I think that Lot was playing dumb and offering these madmen his daughters, knowing that they were homosexual men and would not take the daughters. I think he was trying to buy time. So I don't think he had to make that decision, because that would be too hard of a decision to give your children but then it's in place of angels. So I don't know. It's a horrible situation, okay? And I think he was trying to buy some time, and then the angels opened the door and yanked him inside, okay? But his sons-in-law thought he was joking. With the coming of dawn, the angels urged Lot, saying, "Hurry, take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, or you'll be swept away when the city is punished." So I guess the sons-in-laws weren't going with him because they thought it was a joke. When he hesitated, the men grasped his hand and the hands of his wife and of his 2 daughters and led them safely out of the city, for the Lord was merciful to them. As soon as they had brought them out, one of them said, "Flee for your lives. Don't look back and don't stop anywhere in the plain. Flee to the mountains or you'll be swept away." But Lot said to them, "No, my lords, please. Your servant has found favor in your eyes, and you've shown great kindness to me in sparing my life. But I can't flee to the mountains. This disaster will overtake me and I'll die. Look, here's a town near enough to run to, and it's small. Let me flee to it. It's very small, isn't it? Then my life will be spared." He said to him, "Very well, I'll grant this request too. I will not overthrow the town you speak of, but flee there quickly because I can't do anything until you reach it." And in parentheses, it says, that's why the town was called Zoar, Z-O-A-R, and we've heard that word before. By the time Lot reached Zoar, the sun had risen over the land. Then the Lord rained down burning sulfur on Sodom and Gomorrah from the Lord out of the heavens. Thus he overthrew those cities and the entire plain, destroying all those living in the cities and also the vegetation in the land. But Lot's wife looked back, and she became a pillar of salt. Isn't that interesting? Sulfur was raining down. You know, perhaps the sulfur was pounding down, and she turned around and made a move that caught her in it, and she turned into a pillar of salt. I don't know. Early the next morning, Abraham got up and returned to the place where he had stood before the Lord. He looked down towards Sodom and Gomorrah, towards all the land of the plain, and he saw dense smoke rising from the land, like smoke from a furnace. And you know, there are people who have shown us the sulfur, the pelting sulfur marks in the rocks. They're there to be seen. Now, there's other people who have discovered another city, and they're wondering if it's Sodom and Gomorrah, but I don't remember them showing any sulfur. In other words, they're saying that we're not sure we found it, yet I saw a whole documentary on it where they said this is it, and look at the rocks. They have burning sulfur marks in them. Okay, so whatever, I don't know. You know, you never know, you know, if some stuff is hidden from us. You know, I mean, they found the skeletons of 36-foot tall giants, and do you hear that out there? Do we talk about it? I heard the Smithsonian just put a lid on it and said, don't talk about this, because stuff like that supports the Bible, okay? But, I mean, you can find enough pictures of people who found giants, you know, the skeletons. And I've told you this the last time we went through this. There's a book called The Chronicles of the Barbarians, and in it, it's all letters that were written. And even around, I believe, the year 1000 after Christ, there was a letter in there from an Englishman who talked about giants who were just the lewdest of creatures, who ate all of their cows and sheep and then went after the men. And they were very lewd, having homosexual sex in the streets. And I mean, these letters are there. So we know that giants existed. Okay, we hear them in fairy tales and fables. That's how it's been filtered to us. But it's, you know, the Bible talks about them. Their skeletons have been found, and we have letters. But you notice this stuff is not incorporated into our culture, either, you know, for whatever reason, the elite and the powers that be think we can't handle this knowledge, I guess. There's a whole treasure trove of knowledge out there. Okay. He saw dense smoke rising from the land, like smoke from a furnace. So when God destroyed the cities of the plain, he remembered Abraham, and he brought Lot out of the catastrophe that overthrew the cities where Lot had lived. Lot and his 2 daughters left Zoar and settled in the mountains, for he was afraid to stay in Zoar. He and his 2 daughters lived in a cave. One day, the older daughter said to the younger, now, remember, his wife's been destroyed. Okay, she turned into a pillar of salt. And I think it was probably sulfur raining down on her. She must have stopped and turned and got caught, got blasted. One day, the older daughter said to the younger, our father's old, and there's no man around here to give us children, as is the custom all over the earth. Let's get our father to drink wine and then sleep with him and preserve our family line through our father. Yowza. That night, they got their father to drink wine, and the older daughter went in and slept with him. He was not aware of it when she lay down or when she got up. The next day, the older daughter said to the younger, last night I slept with my father. Let's get him to drink wine again tonight, and you go in and sleep with him so we can preserve our family line through our father. So they got their father to drink wine that night also, and the younger daughter went in and slept with him. Again, he was not aware of it when she lay down or when she got up. So both of Lot's daughters became pregnant by their father. The older daughter had a son, and she named him Moab. He is the father of the Moabites of today. The younger daughter also had a son, and she named him Ben-Ami. He is the father of the Ammonites of today. And that's it. I know that's a horrible story, isn't it? But by today's standards, and I don't know, the Lord allowed it. And once again, basically two peoples were brought out of this this nightmare, sleeping with your dad. Anyway, I love you. I'll see you tomorrow. We'll pick it up at Genesis 20. God bless you. I love you, and I'll see you tomorrow. Good night.